What deal? You asked me for permission to make any and all decisions, but until now, you've really only made one. Is there more that I can give you than I've already agreed to? Of course there is, silly, Janet said, and the girl felt chills run down her spine as she laughed evilly. Yes, give me your hand, Lily, said Janet. Lilith had begun to wonder if Janet even knew her name up until that point. The next thing she knew, it felt like she was sitting in the back seat of a car while someone else was driving. She had been very familiar with that feeling, had in fact despised it her whole life, except this time, she trusted the driver in question, wholeheartedly. Where to, miss? Janet asked, sardonically. Revenge Avenue, Lilith said quietly but decisively. Right away, ma'am, she heard. And then Janet hit the gas, and they were off. Her boyfriend had always insisted that she was free to use his credit card as much and as frequently as she wanted to, though she had never been interested in material things and had kept his spending as little as possible with her own money from the graveyard shift. She had been steadily saving up money that he insisted she should pool into his account for the sake of their wedding, the wedding that both of them knew was never going to happen. Tonight, she had every intention of maxing out said cards, and she knew exactly what to spend all the money on. It was her boyfriend's night off. He would be home by the time that she usually had to go to work, but she wasn't going to go to work that evening. She would visit the graveyard, only to go in and quit her job, but not for any actual work. She knew they didn't care enough to make a fuss. No one there was paid enough to care, least of all the manager who lived on what was supposed to be minimum wage. She arrived at the store, stepped out of the cab, in her one and only pair of beautiful, bright red heels, and took the driver the last bit of cash she had on her. The shop she had entered was luxurious, everything about it bespoke professionality and stylishness. Only the shop had not been expecting a female customer. They soon found, however, that she had made no mistake on her location. As soon as she made it clear that she was there for business and not to browse, no less than 3 shop assistants were immediately there to attend to her every need. Lilith pictured herself in an old-fashioned noir film, imagined the shop assistants as a set of triplets serving as butlers, felt herself in a lap of luxury as they measured her and took notes to make every possible color combination, to make the best of her features, picked out fabrics and materials to match everything she told them she wanted. She knew full well that their flirting was slightly more than just a sales tactic, though for the most part it was just business. That was until she stepped out of the changing room for the first time. From that second forward, every eye was on her, and she and Janet had become one mind, one soul, one person. In her own thoughts, she knew without asking that before her death this was who Janet was, a femme fatale, a man-eater, a beauty that could kill. Lilith's usually hidden long hair was unleashed, only kept in tow by a perfectly sized, stylish hat. The suit was contoured to her body perfectly, the tie was the perfect color, everything was powerful and strong, and yet overwhelmingly feminine and seductive. She paid the man at the desk, much older than the assistants, left her number with the 3 boys, and wore the suit out into the streets, where she walked the rest of the way to the cemetery. The manager only sighed after glancing her up and down, professionally hiding his obvious interest, knowing full well that she had someone in her life. He gave her her last paycheck that was owing her, more than Lilith had bargained for, and she took another cab to a large building. She took a short while to look around, smiled at the person escorting her around the building, and walked out with a new job and another boy's number in her pocket. On her way home, she stopped to change into her most expensive dress, the dress that had made her oh-so-wonderful boyfriend fall in love with her in the first place. It was about to be the night of his life, the night to end all nights. Literally, she whispered to herself with that evil smile that Janet had contributed to her wardrobe. She found him lounging around on his expensive couch, and before he really understood what was happening, she had him chained to the wall in the basement. His basement. His soundproof basement. The following morning, she went to work and headed to therapy. Everything had been planned out, every last detail, but when she got there, things took a bit of a turn. So you see, Doctor, that job will no longer be necessary, Lilith told him while smiling Janet's smile. Are you planning to take his money now? The man asked her, somewhat losing his professional calm. Oh no, Doctor. I'm not after that. Besides, that scumbag has a mountain of debt, and I'd rather not inherit that. I see. But you see, Doctor, I haven't come here only to confess. Oh no. I came here to talk to you. More accurately, to talk about you, she said. Me? He asked, now having lost his cool and calm demeanor altogether. Yes, Doctor. Or should I call you Roger? Mr. Roger, I found your file, she told him, taking out a sheet of paper from inside her handbag. What file? What are you talking about? He asked, jittery and looking for a direction to run in. Don't bother. I know who you are now, she said, the sardonic smile creeping all the way into her voice and down his spine. And I also found your little love notes to one another. What are you talking about? I have no one, he insisted. Oh, but now you do. Except, unfortunately, he's gone missing, and the only person who could have any idea where he went is you. What are you insinuating? She pulled out a phone. It was at this point that Roger realized she'd been wearing gloves throughout what was most likely their entire session. You are not a therapist. You don't even work here. You're a patient. The real therapist quit some time ago, and no one bothered to check and make sure whether you're still supposed to be coming here. They've let you in, and you've been deliberately trying to convince me that everything in my life that's wrong is my own fault. The smile disappeared from her face, and he swallowed hard. There are many texts between you two where you tried to get him to break up with me, so that the two of you can run away together, she told him. Now hold on, he and I aren't. No one will know what you are or aren't. So, I'm going to give you this gun, and you're going to shoot either me or yourself, she said, producing the weapon from a hidden compartment in her bag. Why do you think that I won't kill you? He asked, taking the gun. If you do, you are now the main suspect in both my death and his. He refused to run away with you after all, and it is all my fault. And if I don't, if I kill myself instead, he demanded, then it's clearly because he refused to break up with me, and him, in sheer anger and hatred for having lost you because of me, attempted to murder me, and then ran away. Whether he was successful or not remains to be seen, she said, as calmly as she would tell him the time or the weather. What if I don't do either? You're smart. You should have been a therapist, she teases. Your fingerprints are already all over that gun. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to, she said, the evil making its way back into her voice. A loud shot was heard in the next room, and the secretary ran in and called the police hysterically. The police found a patient with a suicide note in his own handwriting, a gun with his fingerprints, and nothing else. The last person he had talked to was an old friend of his who seemed to have gone missing. The headlines for the next day read, "Man commits suicide in therapist's office." Her life prior to the murders had been non-existent. She had had little to no contact with anyone, had only ever talked to her boss at the graveyard, had not even had a cell phone for more than 5 years. It kept her so isolated from everyone and everything that it was as if she truly did not exist. People knew he had a girlfriend, but beyond her name, nobody knew anything about her. She lived, for all intents and purposes, off the grid entirely. It had been a long time since anyone had used the number that belonged to her before they moved in together, and she'd long since deleted her old email address at his request. No one ever came for her. There was no connection. She was never even officially registered as a patient at the therapist's office. No one had any real reason to suspect that she might be related in any way to what had happened. As far as police were concerned, her ex had killed his now missing girlfriend before fleeing or possibly killing himself and as a result, a man named Roger had followed in his footsteps. It turned out they were having an affair. And Lilith kept her suits and lived the rest of her life out in the corporate world, went by the name Janet, and developed a reputation as a ruthless man-eater, a polygamous death wish for anyone who dared to fall in love with her. She lived in a small, minimalist apartment, went to work early, and got whatever she wanted from there on. It was that simple. Thank you for listening and watching. All links and references are in the description below.